Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. On behalf of Brand Youth Global, thank you for joining us for the third conversation in our 2026 Women's Forum series. On Sunday, the 26th of April, we launched a series with a live session at the University of Guyana in collaboration with the Institute of Gender Studies. It was a strong and engaging start with meaningful contributions from our panelists and participants both in the room and joining abroad. Last Sunday, we had our second session, which was virtual on Zoom. The session connected women internationally and brought a wealth of knowledge to the platform. Today's session continues to build on previous sessions. This year's series continues under the theme From Tradition to Transformation, Breaking Barriers, Shaping the Future of Women. Through these conversations, we are creating space not just to reflect, but to consider how we move forward across our cultural, social, and institutional spaces. This panel will specifically address claiming space and shaping influence. We also look ahead to the continuation of the series. Our final session will be on the 16th of May, 2026, and this will be an in-person session. At this time, I will invite Natasha, Gurney, and Dipchan to introduce our moderator and panelists for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenita. I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Ms. Camille McKenzie. Our panelists, we have Bakang Matiz. Bakang self-identifies as a Botswana-born Pan-African feminist with a deep passion for sustainable development and social justice. Bakang believes her role in Africa's socio-economic development lies at the nexus of entrepreneurship, corporate sustainability strategy, and impact investing. She's held roles across banking, academia, impact investing, and corporate innovation. Currently, Bakang works in the South African office of a Silicon Valley company focused on corporate innovation and venture capital. Previously, she worked in a strategic project management in South Africa's enterprise and supply development sector, and as an impact investment project manager at the University of Cape Town's Graduate School of Business. Bakang serves on the board of US-based EMI Global and is a coach and speaker for entrepreneurship programs. Beyond that, she's a writer, podcaster, and co-founder of a youth development NPO in Botswana, as well as a co-founder of a diversity, equity, and inclusion group working with South African corporations. She's also an alumni of the Youth African Leaders Initiative and the Africa Podcast Fellowship. Please welcome Bakang. Our next panelist is Dr. Deborah Rosanwo. Deborah Rosanwo, MD, is a Guyanese consultant for nuclear medicine, subspecialized in nuclear cardiology, and accredited for positron emission tomography, the first Black and first Black female nuclear physician in Germany. She has worked for the past 20 years in private practice, navigating a white male-dominated space while representing Guyana and women of color with pride and seeing her uniqueness as an asset. Deborah is also an accomplished singer and social, instilling in all young Guyanese the mindset of the audacity to prosper. Please welcome Deborah Rosanwo. Our next panelist is Chelsea Fung. Chelsea Fung's past experiences and knowledge continue to play a significant role in our work with Red Entertainment. In 2012, she graduated with honors from the University of Toronto with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Environment and Society and Women and Gender Studies, and later earned a master's degree in Environmental Studies from York University 2015. Although our academic qualifications are in fields somewhat unrelated to Red Entertainment's line of work, she brought prior experience in event management for university seminars, conferences, and charitable organizations in Guyana. Since Red Entertainment began in 2012, Chelsea has continued to develop her organizational and logistical planning skills as the company's events and projects have grown. Productions such as the Georgetown local elections debate, the Spotlight Talent Competition, and the fundraising telethon for Haiti tested and strengthened her coordination abilities. Her work includes advertising and marketing planning, coordinating teams, and executing productions across social media, live streaming, and television. Please welcome Chelsea. Next on our panel, we have Diamaris Welch. Diamaris Welch is Vice President and Executive Leader of the Lifestyle Studio at People Inc., the nation's largest publisher, where she oversees creative and production teams shaping branding content for some of the world's top advertisers. Her career began in journalism at NBC and expanded at Vice Media, where she developed deep expertise in culture driven storytelling before stepping into broader executive leadership. Today, the Amaris leads multidisciplinary teams across video, social, digital, design, copy, and production, driving creative excellence at scale and helping brands connect with audiences through premium cross platform content. She is known for building high performing teams, elevating creative standards, and translating complex business goals into impact storytelling. She lives in Brooklyn with her husband and son Thomas. Please welcome Diamaris.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And the next and last person on our panel is Aisha Fraser. Aisha K. Fraser is a research professional based in San Francisco Bay Area. Aisha has 15 plus years of experience supporting the development of products, drugs, biologics, and medical devices. Through leading the development of regulatory and quality programs. Currently, she's a clinical trial quality specialist in the biotechnology industry. In her spare time, Aisha enjoys cooking and culinary exploration, gardening, outdoor photography, skiing, and supporting the arts. Thank you all for being here. And
Thank you
now
very
hand you over to Ms. Camille McKenzie, our moderator.
Thank you so much, Natasha, and thank you, Kanita, for that warm introduction and welcome. I wanted to first talk about the panelists and the audience, talk to the panelists and the audience. We're hoping that this is a great, engaging discussion for you guys. And my hope is that today's discussion will offer the audience some new perspectives on how to find new pathways for your own growth and your own success in the future. Please put all your comments and questions in the chat, and we will address those at the end of the session. So to kick this discussion off, I want to address the panelists. You've all got a seat at the table of power, excellence, and influence, all of you. That's why you're here, okay? So our discussion today is going to explore how you got there, what you had to cultivate, reject, or protect in order to succeed. We're going to also discuss how you use your power and your influence to have an impact in your space and how you can leverage that power to create pathways and open doors for other aspiring women. Okay, so let's set the table first. We're going to explore how you transformed from traditional roles to where you are today. So my first question is, let's talk about your initial career choices. You know, when you were about maybe 18, 20, college age, not that you went to college, but at that time, when you were focused on gaining independence from your parents and the rules of the home, and you wanted your independence, you wanted to earn a living for yourself and build, were any of those initial career choices shaped by tradition, culture, or customs? That's the first question. So who wants to kick this off? Come on, go. Deborah.
Well, good evening, everyone. First of all, good evening from Germany. You're hearing with good afternoon, but it's evening over here.
Okay.
And my journey is definitely not a very conventional one. But I have to say that when we're talking about traditions, none of what happened to me was very traditional at all. My parents, for their time and place, were very they were very open. Dad as a lawyer, my mum as a teacher in Guyana at the Ministry of Education, and I must say that I had a rather privileged youth, although I didn't see it like that at that point of time. And I was always encouraged to be the best version of myself. So it was something very natural. I was good at the sciences. I love people and that sort of thing. So I had two choices: either to become a lawyer or to become a doctor. Those days there was nothing like IT and all that kind of thing. So um, those were my two things. And I actually had two scholarships. I actually had two scholarships at one time to go to the University of the West Indies for law or to go to Germany for medicine. And my father said, I'm not influencing you. Go into your bedroom and decide. And I had 2 days to decide, and I chose medicine. That's how it
That's
went.
great. That's great. Anybody else?
I can go next. When it was time for me to make a choice about going to college, I decided at that point that I wanted to go into writing. I always knew that I had a passion for storytelling and writing. I felt that way since I was a kid. But similarly to you, Deborah, the only choices I was actually given were to be a doctor or a lawyer. And unfortunately, when it was time to apply to college, that was the first time that my family heard writing, and they lost it. They lost it. They were like, wait, you're not going to be a doctor? Because I too was good at the sciences, I was good at math, and I was following the path the entire time. But once it was time to break free, I was like, I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going for the writing. And I remember my uncle specifically saying to me, he sent me this test to take to show what you would actually be good at, what you should do, because he was going to convince me that I should do something other than writing and applying to go to be an English major. They thought I was going to be wasting money in college being an English major. And I did that entire test. And at the end of it, it said, you're best suited to be a script writer. And I was like, look, you see, there you go. And that settled it. So they allowed me to go to Cornell University and apply for writing. And the entire time, even at my graduation, my uncle showed up and said, oh, look at your friend here who's pre-med. I mean, isn't that so much smarter? What are you going to do as a writer? How are you going to make money? And honestly, I was like, I don't know. But but I knew that at the time, part of what shaped my interest in storytelling was the Guyanese heritage. And growing up in Guyana, I was born in Brooklyn, but I lived in Guyana with my grandparents. And in the Guyanese culture, there's such rich storytelling, and you hear it everywhere. You hear it in the streets, you hear it from the way people speak, you hear it in the stories people tell. And my house, particularly, I felt had very strong storytellers. Everything is so colorful, the language is so colorful. And that really was impactful for me and impactful in terms of what I wanted to do. I also decided then to do journalism. And that was when my uncle said, huh, maybe there is a little thing, because that sounds like a career, you know. But typically that's really what impacted me in terms of choosing the career I was going to be in. Number one, I wanted to choose something that I felt like I could be happy in. And especially if you're going to choose to go into be a doctor or a lawyer who represents people, you need to really feel passionate about that. So I said, I'm not passionate about that. So I'm going to go into something that I know I'm going to be passionate about, but also I felt like was part of my blood anyway.
Wonderful. Thank you. Who
hmm
else? Who's going to go next? Tell us your story.
I'm happy to go next. So I grew up I'm from a very small country called Botswana in the south of southern part of Africa, and they are all of right now 2.5 million people in that whole entire country. And so I mentioned that because the exposure, right, at that time, the population was much smaller then, to different careers was, of course, a little bit limited. But I was fortunate enough to go to a private school where I at least had access to information about what was happening beyond the borders of, the small country with 2 million people. And so I'd say, so I ended up studying economics. That was my choice. And I was fortunate enough, I think, that I chose a career path at that point that was aligned to what African parents would consider a respectable career. But one thing I do remember is that my sister and I had, I think something. Yeah. So my sister and I had also grown up very musical. Our parents afforded us the opportunity to do music on the side. And so it was quite interesting because at that point I was like, oh, maybe I should also do the music route. And I think I quickly read the room that we love that for you as a hobby. But I think we love economics more for your life. So I think I had at least I had the privilege of choosing a career that was in line with that. But I really deeply loved economics. But I also chose it because I didn't like the idea of going into a career path that somebody would tell me what I had to be when I finished it, right? So I couldn't stand the idea of being studying accounting, because then somebody's going to tell me to be an accountant. And I was like, well, what if I don't want to be an accountant? So economics was also a little bit of a cheeky move on my side because I knew at least at that point that I could do so many other things with economics than just one thing. So I was like, okay, satisfy the parents, really love this thing, but also I have the optionality when I'm done to choose what I want to do with this career. And it's worked out that way.
Wonderful. Thank you. Chelsea or Aisha, either one of you.
Okay, I'll go ahead. All right, I just want to say before I start that this is fantastic. I love being, surrounded by so many powerful women. I think majority of you with Guyanese background. So I just want to say thank you again, Selwyn, for having me on here. And the last time I was here on this forum, I was the moderator, and so it's nice to see you again, Bakang. I I was actually born in England, but I grew up in Guyana. Left there when I was 18, and yeah, so I left there when I was. Oh, I think someone is. Okay. Yeah, so I left there when I was 18 to come here in Canada. So I live in Toronto, Canada, but my business is in Guyana. So my body is here, but my mind and soul, I feel, still in Guyana. So I travel back and forth. And my mom still lives there. She's a single mom, and I'm her only child. And similarly to Deborah, I would say I grew up, privileged to be able to do what I want to do. It was always, be the best version of yourself. And also had the privilege of having Canadian citizenship from my father. And so being able to come here to Canada to study at the age of 18. But, I was free to do what I wanted to do. And at that time, I remember, always sort of thinking of myself, oh, maybe I might be an ophthalmologist or maybe an environmentalist. And so I always did sciences, never did business. Never had the interest in marketing. My mom is a powerhouse marketing, leader, CEO. Like that's where her career eventually took her. And never had the interest of doing it. I tried it and then I didn't like it. Anyhow, so came here and, took a women and gender studies class. Completely loved it. I mean, I guess I was a feminist, I learned it. So I was a feminist as at heart, also very charitable, also believed in, humanity and a deep empath, from as long as I could remember. So love that, and then also did environmental studies, and throughout my academic journey, I was involved in different unions, the Caribbean Studies Union, the Environmental Studies Union, the Women and Gender Studies Union, and we would always host events. I was co-president for a few years of the Women and Gender Studies Union, and I loved it. I loved, putting together events, seeing it grow from just an idea, and then come to fruition at the end. Long, tedious hours. It would take months to plan a conference, and then on the day to really take in the audience, and just the satisfaction of connecting people, and sparking conversation. So I enjoyed it. And after I graduated for my and I got my bachelor's degree, I went back home to Ghana, and I said, I would take a year and then come back and do my master's. Within that year, I did an internship at the environmental management consultancy. And within that time, that's when Red Entertainment was born, and it was totally spontaneous. It literally came from a conversation with my friends at my mom's house, where we were saying, and we all came back. We graduated from university, came back home, and said, there's just really there isn't a diverse entertainment landscape in Guyana. It's you go to the club, you go to somebody's house for a party. There wasn't like a lot going on, that can sort of satisfy that need to, let's say, go to a spoken word, go to a club where you can hear spoken word performances, or hear a live band, at a whim. So my mom was like, well, why you stop complaining and do something about it? Why you just don't, hosting? Because we're talking about jazz, and some I can't remember who went to a jazz. I think it was me. I went to a jazz festival. And so she was like, well, Arturo Tapin from Barbados, we would usually have him come. We had him more than once for a fundraiser event for the Rotary Club of Demerara, and he's fantastic. And we're like, yeah, Arturo is great. He plays the sax, and he plays soca songs, and it can reach like a diverse audience. And then that was it. We did that. It was a huge success. The next event we did was a huge failure, but we still kept going. And people just said, you're doing these events, maybe you can do it for companies, you could do it for other people. And then it just snowballed into what it is today, which is not only Red Entertainment, but Red Marketing. And now it's 13 of us. So from three, I have two partners. So it's the three of us that built it. And so from 2012 to now, it's 13 of us, majority of us women, and that's another big thing is we just love working with women, and we love just building careers, building confidence, and yeah, I love it. That's enough for me for now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chelsea. Aisha, that leaves you. So let's have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Good day, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with all of you, and I loved hearing your stories. Yes, I have a Caribbean background too. My parents were both born in Guyana, and I too had a high bar to clear in terms of career and what I would do for the rest of my life. And I knew it was always going to be something with STEM because I was always inquisitive and my favorite questions were how and why. I would annoy my parents with that. I would annoy other adults with that, asking questions they could not answer. Definitely was a favorite pastime of mine as a child. So, I used to collect books about all the different ways the world works. I had the National Geographic subscription, the Smithsonian subscription. So it was pretty obvious that I was going to do something with science. And that's what I did when I went to university. And I think for me, I realized pretty quickly I wasn't cut out to be a clinician. As a more reserved person, I was like, this is way too much people to people interaction. It's like, I don't think I can do this. And so then I realized I really loved the lab. And so that's where I found my passion. Definitely enjoyed being able to be in my zone and do experiments and learn and just discover, the world. I think what my path showed me that there's usually more options than you realize. Like when I first went to university, it's like, okay, you either get an MD or you either get a PhD or you get both. And I just realized, okay, MD, PhD, that's like 10 years of school before I can even work, plus other training. That's too much. I'll do a PhD. Disclaimer, I don't have a PhD. Realized is that my journey has taken me into different spaces. But what I realize is that I never lost that curiosity and I just built out a career for myself. Like I didn't go with a prescribed career. And I would encourage people to really listen to that voice inside of them and really decide what's best for you. I think I could have been great at a PhD, but I probably wouldn't have been satisfied. And I think it would have been very hard for me to complete the program because my heart wasn't fully in it. And so now with me finding my niche in biotech, I love it. I love the fact that I get to build systems. I love the fact that I get to contribute to people's lives. So I would say while traditional career paths can be great and suit certain people, if you are more creative or want to experiment and take a winding path, that's fine. You can also get to a place where you will eventually be successful and fulfilled.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I gather from everything that you guys have said, we have a couple of um, disobedient spirits in the group. Those who listened to their parents and ignored completely what the parents said, but arrived at a successful place. So let me ask you this. What values or concepts did you inherit from your upbringing or your culture or your traditions that impact how you show up and lead today in your space? Who wants to kick that off? But Kang, I see you nodding. So you want to go first?
Like, note to self, I won't nod as hard for the next question that you ask.
I'll keep that in
Okay,
mind for next time.
I love that. Brilliant question. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me, especially growing up in Botswana, one of the the things that I'm so grateful for in terms of the essence of our culture is that Botswana are a peaceful and people-loving kind of people. So I think I think we are one of the few countries, if not the only country in Africa that actually does not have a history of any wars whatsoever. So we've never had a context of war, even our independence journey from the light colonialism that the British had over us because they were like, we're not going to make them a full colony because what is there in this dusty African country? Blessing in disguise later on, but story for another day. So even our journey out of that colonialist past was very peaceful, unlike, unfortunately, on the rest of the continent and many other places around the world. So I think having grown up knowing that peace loving and loving people is really at the core of our culture that has transcended into every space that I have found myself in. And having grown up in Botswana, but then now living and working in South Africa, which unfortunately has a much harder history in terms of segregation and apartheid, I will say that I was very much tested in the way that I then show up in workplaces where the history of the country still infiltrates and affects the way people build relationships in the workplace, and the fact that racial tensions are still very rife within the workplace because, unfortunately, it is still predominantly white people who own economic power. And so I think coming from Botswana has actually been a benefit for me in that way, because I know what it looks like to love people and to love peace. And so insisting that in the teams that I'm part of, whether I'm leading or being led, I lead with love and I lead from a peaceful mentality, but also learning, I guess, in this environment that I guess going rogue, that sometimes requires you to go rogue in terms of what the status quo is, and to say, no, there actually is a better way. And I have seen that work. And so that those two, I think, tenets of my culture really have influenced how I have come to step into leadership in my own way, and seeing how exposing people to a different and a better way actually can lead to transformation in other spaces and provide a different way for people to look at things. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's excellent. Anybody else?
I would say growing up in Guyana with my grandmother, she was a teacher and then she became a headmistress. Um, there was always this a culture of excellence in our home of what was required of us and of us. I'm talking about myself and my sister. There was always a very high expectation placed on us. But my grandmother was also the type of person who allowed you to be yourself. And she was very open-minded. So how that has translated to how I show up as well currently is I always tell my teams, I expect excellence from you, but I don't expect perfection. And I think that that has also helped a lot in terms of pushing people to deliver their very best when we're working together and when we're in an environment together. Because working in corporate America as a Black woman is hard. And so that idea of excellence and competition, those are all parts of the fabric of what I felt in the Guyanese school system and growing up, and as part of the culture growing up there. And that has helped me to translate the resiliency that I got from that culture into corporate America as well. The other part of growing up in Guyana that I bring every day to work is my grandparents had a lot of friends. They had a very vibrant house and a lot of lively people around them with so many different points of views and debates, and just there were a lot of characters, right, around me growing up. And it taught me how to interact with so many different types of people. I could and th this is going to come as a surprise to a lot of people, but I am actually an introvert. I'm not an extroverted person. I'm a shy person at my core, but I do not show up that way. And that is part of what I've learned to do to like, because I've been around so many different types of people that you also have to learn how to navigate that when you're in corporate America too, especially if you're going to want to succeed and if you want to have a successful career. And so that's something that I learned from my culture that I bring to every single day. The other thing too is with my upbringing, when I think about it, I'm glad that you invited me to do this panel because it really made me have to process a lot of things. But at 6 months, I moved to Guyana. I came to America at a really specific age of 12, right? So that's like when you're just preteen. And I came here with my braids in my hair and I joined sixth grade. And I was in a certain part of Brooklyn. And after sixth and seventh grade, I changed schools again to eighth grade. And after eighth grade, it was high school where I was in 4 years. And then after high school, it was college, another 4 years. So every few years, I had to change almost like the groups that were around me. I changed from a cultural perspective. And so that kind of evolution every few years, not evolution of myself, because I always stay true to myself. However, I had to navigate spaces that weren't necessarily bending to me, right? I almost had to bend a little bit to those spaces. And again, when working in these corporate environments, it teaches you a little bit of how to be malleable too. So that's something that people have always talked about me. Like I'm pretty strong, I'm very decisive, but I'm also flexible. Like I'm never so rigid in my thought about how something can be achieved that I leave myself open and curious enough to like be open to other possibilities. And so that's something that I think has like helped me as well because I see the possibilities and I work towards the possibilities. And that helps me to be almost naively optimistic about things, but then you achieve it and you're like, oh, this is great. So those are all things from the culture that I grew up in that I bring to every day with me that I do feel has helped me achieve the success that I've had.
Excellent. Okay. Aisha or Chelsea, who wants to go next?
I can go. I definitely
Okay.
think that my culture has given me a solid foundation. It's given me an appreciation of my heritage. It's given me wisdom. It's given me strength. And just like Dia said, coming from such a diverse society as Guyana with 6 recognized ethnic groups, and also coming from a multicultural family, I too believe that that has been one of my superpowers because I can talk to anyone. Like I can connect with anyone. I could understand anyone, even if I don't agree with them. And I think that type of agility and adaptability is really important, especially as our world continues to become more global. And so I find that that has really been great for me in terms of my career advancement and experience. And I really have started to lean more into it in the last like decade. Okay, hold on. I've realized like, wow, I've really got something great here. And I don't realize, I realize how fortunate I am because I see that other people don't have that like intrinsically. And so I definitely lean into that and it's helped me to be very successful. And also I think because my parents always nurtured my curiosity, I never had to suppress it. And that has helped me to question systems, question the way things are done, and use my creativity to come up with things that may be better. I've had to work on realizing those things won't happen very quickly in most situations, but I am persistent. And if I really believe in something and I know that a change could be beneficial for not just me, but for many people around me, I push for it. So I'm thankful that my culture, my upbringing, and everything that came with it gave me a very solid foundation and is an internal compass for me navigating the world. And then, everything else that I experience and learn, I just build upon that. So that's been, so I've been very fortunate to have that experience.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Aisha. Deborah or Chelsea, who goes next?
I'll go next.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. I am so happy that so many words have fallen that certainly always ring a bell with myself. Also, from Dia, the fact that you grew up in this atmosphere of excellence and competition, that was so typical of our time in the 70s. That's when I was at school. And that was, it's that our culture and our upbringing that has really grounded us. I have to say that I'm someone who loves ancestry and history. And I'm a great believer in the fact that we carry everything that we have had from our ancestors, and it is that which has made us. I am acutely aware of that, especially in this society in which I am in, where I am usually the only Black person in the room. So I am always representing. That the moment I get into the room, I am representing. And who am I representing? All those who came before me. And that is something that it's in me. There's a beautiful saying that I had read while I was thinking about what was being said, and it says, in 7 generations, it took 254 people, each with their own stories, struggles, and choices, for you to be here today. And this is something that I always carry with me, and I always try to instill, especially in the children that are here, born here, mostly to African and German parents who sometimes do not actually know where they come from. They do not know about their history. And that is something that I always try to instill in them, that you have a very, very special part of history which you don't know about, and you should get out learning about it. It's so important. I think that the skills that I brought with me, especially from my family, were, especially from the women of the family, were the negotiation skills. You really have to know how to negotiate in a man's world, not only in the man's world, also between the cultures and so on. And that's something that we learned very easily, very quickly in Guyana as well, between the different cultures. So it came very naturally for me. But it was something that I realized, oh, this is a superpower when you're out here in a place like Germany. Not only the negotiation skills, it was also the focus and the persistence, because you won't get anywhere by starting something and not believing in yourself. Those were things that were instilled in myself from my parents. And I always think back to the generations before. If they did not persist, we would not be. So that is something that I always carry with me.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Chelsea?
Oh, I'm so happy that you spoke before me because that sparked another thought. Um, uh, I as well agree that we carry so much with us, from our ancestors, and we're born with, intelligence that people don't realize comes from our ancestral lines. I truly do believe that. When I was studying at University of Toronto, I was tasked to write a book about a medicinal plant, and of course I chose a medicinal plant from Guyana. Well, not from Guyana. It came from Ghana to Guyana. And I learned so much about our African history and ancestry, in the Guyana context. And now, at this stage in my life, and being a mom as well, and seeing, the personality of your child evolve, and noticing that there are things there that aren't learned. You know what I mean? It's truly fascinating to me. So I do feel, and as a child, my mom never really, instructed me to do something or demanded me to do my homework or any of these things. I always just did it. She always said, like, you just, but really, when you start to process your childhood years, and these all these good things that you would do at this stage in life, I guess, is that she modeled how to be disciplined, and to be a leader, and to be charitable, philanthropic, to be empathetic, to be a feminist, to appreciate women, and acknowledge their strength, acknowledge their resilience, acknowledge their intelligence. So she modeled all of that, and I feel, because my father left at a young age, she had to do it. Like, she had to work, she had to be somebody, and make the money so that she could provide for me. So it was always modeled, and so yes, I grew up with a lot of characters, in my household. She surrounded me with so many, family, and aunties and uncles, and not by blood, but by friendship, and connection. And so I learned from a lot of people, and in our culture, there are these, expectations and all of that, but she never put that on me. I don't view it as she said that, you need to be a doctor, you need to be a lawyer, you need to be successful. It was always just modeled, you know. So yeah, I
Mom is
feel
on scene, buddy.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Okay, so very good, ladies. Thank you so much for that. That sets the table. My next question is this: how do women in the workplace or in your spaces turn presence into influence and influence into impact? For example, what are the key elements of how you show up and how you lead in your space? And what does your presence in your space represent to those around you? Who wants to go first? Dia, you're ready. Come on, do it.
But am I though? No, presence is so important. And I say that because as I I believe I might actually I am the only Black female vice president, maybe yeah, the only Black female vice president at my company, and it's a big company. So that says a lot. And it's not a good thing though, right? And like you, Deborah, I am typically the only Black person in a room. So what does it mean? It means that every time I show up, I know I'm representing so much more than myself because I need there to be no question about other people who look like me being able to do the same and come after me too. Like, so that's really, really important to me in terms of how I show up. And that's just presence. But when that turns into influence is it takes time and time and win after win after win after win, probably more wins than your counterparts, and showing up with excellence every time to create and to have influence, because then that builds trust, right? When you're showing the wins and you're showing that you can deliver and you are showing that you're excellent, people start to trust you, and that's how you gain the influence. Now when it comes to impact, to me, that's the big difference. Like, it's not enough to just show up, but for me, it's about building systems so that it works and my influence is there even if I'm not in the room. And so sometimes that's why it's important for me in terms of how I build out my structures, in terms of how I build out my teams, in terms of the excellence that I require and how I really work with my teams, how I show them like how to ask questions and really dig for more, that they start doing that. Because a lot of times when you're in a position of influence, a lot of stuff is like a trickle down, and you realize that you're responsible for the culture of the teams around you. And so that's something that I keep in mind all the time. It's like, what culture am I trying to build? And is every decision that I make representing and reflective of that culture that I want for my team? And so that's really important for me. And also building the systems that make sure that even if I'm not in the room, there are other people there who are thinking with the same ethics and morals and quite curiosity, and really bring their full selves into conversations and thinking about it from that perspective as well as me. And again, what it comes down to is you're wanting to show up in that way because you don't want there to be a question of whether anyone else who looks like you is just as capable of doing the thing.
Great. Excellent. Thank you so much, Dia. Who wants to go next? Ladies?
No, I can go, Auntie
Okay,
Camille. Oh,
go ahead.
oops, I did
No,
it. I
it's
called you
fine.
Auntie. Um, so I would say for my journey, self-awareness has been very critical. And so doing a lot of work on myself first has really helped me to assert my position in the world and then go from there in terms of turning that into influence. And so about 5 years ago, I was really at a critical juncture where I had to make a decision about if I wanted to step into my true leadership abilities. And I think it required me to move away from being a more reserved person and just being about my work, that culture of excellence and applying yourself. And I just realized that that was never going to be enough to enact the type of change I wanted to see in organizations. And I would have to ascend. I'd have to be more visible. I'd have to get into leadership. And I just was like, oh no, this is not what I'm about. I just want to do my work. I just want to learn. I just want to apply myself. So I really had to have an honest conversation about what it would take. And thankfully, I had a wonderful mentor who helped me during that time of my life. And now that I'm in this new role at this company, I realize all the things that I went through were to get me to this place because now I don't second guess myself. I know what I need to do. I know what my strengths are. I know what my weaknesses are. And I'm constantly looking for opportunities to leverage my strengths and to improve upon my weaknesses. And so that's been very important for me. So I would tell people who are, on the fence or who are going through a transition, really start with yourself. Like really sit down and be honest about like where do you excel and where do you need improvement? And then take a look at the landscape where you find yourself and say, okay, where are the strategic opportunities for me to engage? Where can I, leverage my skills and get more traction, become more influential? So it's constantly like a feedback cycle of assessing your environment and then also assessing where you are and what you're willing to do. So that would be my advice.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Aisha. Who else wants to contribute to this discussion?
I'd be happy to
Um,
go next.
Go ahead, Bakang.
Okay, wonderful. I think on my side, if we take the question from the idea or the concept of presence, I think for me, the way that I have been able to steward my presence for influence is firstly really being strong in my identity and my self-concept and realizing that being who I am as I am is is not a mistake in that particular organization. That being who I am is actually the thing that is going to get me the kind of influence and have me have the kind of impact I'm meant to have in that room. And because I think sometimes the voices or like media narratives can, have us perform our way into success, as opposed to owning the asset that is our identity, whatever your background is, whether it was deemed privileged, underprivileged. Every single thing that makes up the constitution of you is an asset that you can actually steward if you stand strong in that identity. And then I think for me, how I then move that identity presence into influence is to also then realize the responsibility element. And I think many of the other panel members have alluded to this, that I think it's not something to celebrate that in 2026 we are still saying I am the only, because I share a very similar experience to the rest of the panel, to say I am the only in so many rooms. And to be honest, it's boring because I also want to be in there with my mates and people who look like me having a good time too. So I think what's always on my mind once my presence is in those rooms is, okay, how do I then wield this privilege that I have to be in this room that I deserve to be in for impact? And sometimes that looks like falling on the sword because somebody who looks like me but is for whatever reason deemed to be underperforming, not for objective reasons but just because they don't present in the same way, is being thrown under the bus, recognizing that my privilege is only worth something if I use it for the benefit of other people who look like me or creating space in that room. One of the things that I remember experiencing in a company where one of the companies I've worked, predominantly white men, getting to the top. And again, because I speak in a manner that, seems palatable to them, then kind of being aware that there's a trap of exceptionalism, that your excellence and the way that you are eloquent can present, that can then be weaponized against people who look like you. So also being very careful to not fall into that trap when people are like, oh, but it's because you are so, you present so well, or because you speak so well, and then you having to say, oh no, but so and so speaks just as well. They just maybe articulate themselves differently, but we were actually making the same point. So I think having, and maybe that goes back to Aisha's point of awareness, that your presence and your identity are never used to weaponize that presence against other people who look like you, who also should be in the room.
Wonderful, Bakang. Thank you so much. And I think what you've all said so far, and we're going to go to Chelsea and Deborah in a minute, but it just goes to show and to highlight the characteristics that women need to build on and to cultivate in order to be successful and to be acknowledged as successful and acknowledged as excellent in their spaces. So, Chelsea or Deborah, which one of you'd like to go next?
I can go next
Go
because
ahead.
these the what my colleagues are saying. All of this is so perfectly true. Uh, there are certain characteristics which we all have to develop along the way. And I suppose some of them come to some of us naturally, and others have to learn them, have to be mentored, and this sort of thing. But women who are influential, they all seem to have a certain pattern. And I think something that for the young ones who are listening now, it's so important to understand that visibility is not the same as authority. You have to learn how to command respect. And this comes in several forms. It's also the way that you present yourself, of course. But as I said, being present uh, can bring you attention, but it's not influence. So there are things that one has to really understand. I loved the fact that the ladies here were saying that you should not we should not be actually so proud of saying that we're the only ones or the first black person or whatever it is. Yeah, the first is okay, but we should not still be saying after 20 years that we're the only ones in the room, because it is, as I said, our ancestral duty to make sure that we find the pathway for others. And the only way that we can do that as well is joining the table in different things, joining teams that have influence. That is something that I've learned in medicine. I'm not in the corporate world, but I've also understood that I cannot just sit back and look after my own practice. I have to join influential teams and be able to make my voice heard, and to be able to create spaces for my young colleagues and say, listen here, in this, there's also a practicum, there's also an internship here. Come along and don't be scared. You can show up here. You can also do this.
Right.
These are the things that we have to be able to understand for the young ones, and the young ones have to also understand that they have to do the work before they can become influential. It's not just a pretty face. It's not just dressing. It's not just. It's also just being consistent and showing up with reliability, and also showing up that making decisions that people can rely on. That's something that I always talk about. My someone that I love is actually Angela Merkel. She was not someone who was dressy or flashy, but her decisions were things that the whole world could rely on, and this is something that also makes you influential.
Thank you so much, Deborah. And what everybody has said so far is so exceptional, because what you've all laid out, the fact that you don't want to be the only person of your ilk or of your race in the room is exactly the reason why we're having this series, this Women's Forum series. So this all ties in perfectly with what we're trying to do for those young women who are aspiring to be like you or to be they're upwardly mobile and they're trying to get to a place of excellence and success. Chelsea, you haven't said anything yet. What do you have to add?
Yes, I mean, likewise, Deborah, everything that everyone's saying resonates so strongly. The self-awareness bit, this is something that's I've been really dialed into in recent years. Because if you don't understand yourself, you wouldn't understand anyone else. Um, uh, within my company, and I have so much respect for those of you working in corporate America and in Germany, and having to be in these spaces where you are the only one. That's not my experience. Like I said, my body is here, but my mind is in Guyana. But within our company, our business, um, uh, again, coming back to the modeling, modeling, the discipline, the confidence, the will to keep on learning, the will to get back up when you fail, doing all of that with sort of a level of grace, just persistence, resilience, is how I've been practicing, hopefully making that impact, and influencing the women around me, and then working with so many other small businesses, because I mean that's a lot of what we do. We work with other small businesses and always prioritize women-led businesses. Our company was built by doing that, by collaborating with other entrepreneurs and leaders within our community. So really building that impact and influence, not only with those that we work with, but also together with them, is really what I feel that the future of our company, and well, hopefully the community at large sees us going, because that's the only way that we can improve, and grow, and continue to develop a higher level of consciousness, which I feel not only Ghana but our world needs today.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. Thank you, ladies. You've all highlighted the need to cultivate certain attitudes and certain approaches to being successful. And it's so good because it tells the audience and those people who are aspiring to success, like you guys, it tells them what they have to monitor, what they have to cultivate, what they have to manage in order to rise to that level. So thank you so much for that. But my next question is going to be, how do you intentionally claim space? A woman, how does a woman do that? Yes, you've got influence. Yes, you've got impact. But let's talk about somebody who is just rising to that level. How do you intentionally enter into a space and claim your spot at the table? Who goes first?
I can I can chat about that. When I was younger, so when I went to college, I remember at the end of college, I when I was looking at grad schools, I wasn't quite sure who was going to take me because While I went to a wonderful college, I will say I wasn't exactly the most studious there. Again, this is why I wasn't going to go into pre-med. I'm like, could I even make 4 years of college? Let's be real.
There's stories about that actually.
Of course. And I was like, where am I going to go? Like, who's going to take me? So what I did is I was at Cornell, which is in Ithaca in upstate New York, and I took a bus to Syracuse University, which had the #1 journalism program in the country. And I would just show up in the building and sit in the back of a classroom. And I started to get to know the professors. And I would just show up to their classes and I would just show up to the dean and I was like, hey, yeah, I go to Cornell. I don't even come here. I'm just in, and that just kept going. I just did that for a bit. And I was like, listen, I'm going to apply here to come here next week, like next year. What do you say? Like, could this be something? And so by the time I applied, they were looking out for me. And I did that. I didn't sit in classes, but I had reached out to people at NYU. I just and I guess even in college, I was like, I know I want to do something in journalism, but I don't know what to do. I don't have an internship. I'm an English major. Cornell is more about how to communicate and not like that practical hands-on learning. And I remember just seeing the name of an editor in a newspaper, and I literally looked her up. And at the time, I just emailed her and I was like, hey, could I get a job? Like, is there like, what's an internship? I'll work for free. And she was like, who are you? And why are you just, I have no idea who you are. Why would you just message me like this? And I was like, yeah, but could we just chat about it though? Like, could I get an internship? And she said, well, do you drive? And I was like, no, I have no idea how to drive. And she was like, sorry, I need someone who can drive around the city to tell these kinds of stories or whatever. And I spoke to my uncle at the time and I was like, I didn't get this internship because I can't drive. He's like, well, you're never not going to get an internship because you can't drive anymore. So you're going to take driving lessons. You know, long story short, I didn't get that internship. But that while I'm telling you those stories is because my circumstances could have said that, oh my gosh, wow, like I don't necessarily have options. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. But persistence, betting on yourself, picking up a phone, calling people, reaching out, and honestly just being a little bit daring in a way that when I told you guys I'm weirdly just optimistic about things working out in my favor. This is what I'm talking about. Like sitting in a classroom and almost willing myself into these spaces that I know I want to be in, and then convincing people to give me a shot. That's just what I had to do, or I would have never been there. And I have applied that. And when I think about it, I'm the same person now. I still do those things. And that's to me what you have to do sometimes. And it doesn't matter how young you are, you can try that. You can do that. You can just be daring and bold. And as a woman, that's what it is. It's like you do sometimes, nobody's going to, a lot of times people don't give you things. You kind of just have to take it. And that is how I've even been able to start my career. Because that time at Syracuse and then pushing myself into a job and taking a full-time, like an internship that I got turned into a job full-time while I was also in grad school and then landing. I mean, I kept doing these things to get ahead and to put myself in a position. And Deborah, what you said earlier, it resonates so much to me, where you said that we are basically I mean, you said it much more eloquently than this, but that we are the embodiment and standing here representing all the years of people behind us. That's what pushes me forward to do these things. That's what, when I'm deciding, do I do it or do I not? That's really what drives me to say, no, I'm going to do it, because there's so many sacrifices that I know have been made before me that I got to take the shot, right? And so that's my advice to every young person who is aspiring to grow, aspiring to lead, aspiring to have a seat at the table. You're going to have to do things that make you uncomfortable. Being on a panel is uncomfortable for me. I do panels. People will not know that because it's uncomfortable, but being uncomfortable isn't going to help me grow, and it's not going to put me out there, and it's not going to help me be who I want to be ultimately. So you got to do things that feel uncomfortable, and that's going to help you in the end.
Thank you. Wonderful. Who wants to go next?
I think I'll just add to what Dia said because I absolutely agree. You have to be bold, you have to be daring, and believe in your own capabilities. I One would not believe that after all these years that sometimes you do sit around and think, am I capable? Can I do this? I have always been a very hands-on person. I love working with patients. I am not the scientist. Hands off up to Aisha, but I am not the scientist. But you sit around and you sit in lectures from at certain conferences, and you think, "Good heavens! I mean, they're talking such bull. You probably could actually do this without even having to pull up all the papers." And I think just last year, someone came up to me and said, all the cardiologists have mentioned your name. There's a certain illness, and you are the one who seems to be always the one looking after these patients. We would like you to give a lecture. And I said, me? I don't give lectures. And at that same moment, I said, why not? And I said, okay, I'll do it. I was very sorry that I'd said that in the very moment. And then I said, but believe in yourself. It's what you do every day. What's your problem? And apart from that, if you do this, you are opening yourself up to so many more people who will be sending you so many more patients. You just have to do this. So I looked at the theme and said, hey, I'll get through it. Got there, the lady had to give me a glass of champagne for me to get started. And then I started off on what I had prepared, and then I just put the papers aside because I realized that it's my theme. I can speak about it. Claim your space, do what you have to do, tell them about it in your own way. It doesn't have to be absolutely scientific. And they loved it. And now I'm being inundated by patients on this theme. And it's just because others believed more in me than I believed actually in myself. So,
Wonderful. Thank
yes.
you so much, Deborah. Thank you. While we're talking, we have three more panelists who haven't said their piece yet, but I also wanted to add a little twist to it. Is your approach to intentionally claiming space or a woman's approach, is it different in a male-dominated space? Is it different in an unfamiliar new space? What do you guys think?
Oh, I love that question. Can I go? Okay.
Yeah.
It's I just love being in a space like this because I realize and I my thoughts and ways of approaching life are validated. Because when, Camille, when you asked the question, literally in my head, I was like, well, you just do it, right? Because that's how we do what we do. If you don't take the leap, if you don't just decide, okay, well, I'm just gonna go and do this and believe in yourself and literally no self-doubt, that's how you truly claim, space, and actually have like an impact. So this is just fantastic to me. That everyone's saying the same things that I thought. And it really makes me reflect on my earlier years and how we did what we did, and even when we were approached to do things that we've never done before. And I mean, you have a company like CID Gallup who does polling all over the world, and they come to Ghana and they found us and said, like, we want you to do market research. And we were like, well, we've never done market research. I mean, I've done research in my academic years, and I love research. And come to us and say, yeah, we think we could do it, and we were going to train you. And we're like, yeah, 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 we could do it. We could do it. And then that's just how it starts. And then now we're a leading market research a company in Ghana. And a lot of people don't know that, but we do a lot of market research for some very international conglomerates. And you just do it. And that's my advice. I mean, yes, of course, there will be feelings of self-doubt. You would question your capabilities, but honestly, just believe in yourself. And as you would say in Ghana, throw out your belly. And in those spaces with, that are male dominated, I just say you come into that room with even more conviction, even more strength, and and and
Absolutely.
and you project your voice and make sure that you get your word in, because a lot of the times, I mean, I just had a meeting and I you just can't get a word in, right? But you make sure that you say what you have to say.
Right.
So yeah, that's
So
kind
your
of.
voice has to be a commanding voice in the space. Not
Mhm.
not commanding meaning loud, but commanding meaning you're full of knowledge, you're full of leadership, you're full of whatever the space
Mhm.
requires for you to show up and show out, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. So
But
Bakang
you do
or
not
Aisha,
need, sorry,
what do you say?
you should always remember your femininity because that is a plus. We should not try to be masculine. We don't need to
Absolutely.
be.
I agree. I agree with that. Bakang or Aisha?
Sure, I'm happy to go next. And of course, I think we are all in alignment with everything that everybody has said prior. I think one of the things that I am realizing now, as kind of, reflecting back on my earlier years, is just the value of, I think, one, curiosity. I've literally gotten jobs just because I was curious. I remember I got this new role created for me because a head in a different department didn't have enough people on his team, comes after hours and he's like, yo, I need someone to solve this problem with the system. I know you guys work with the system. I literally stayed up in the bank like overnight, just trying to figure this thing out, just because I'm really curious. I was like, there's no way so many smart people work here and no one can figure this out. I was like, this has to be figure outable. And so figured it out, got a job with him the next month, and it was like a promotion. So simply out of curiosity, this and the belief that everything is figure outable, as somebody who has pivoted probably five, six, 7 times, I've lost count in my career. What I realized as well is that it's really not somebody else's job to find a reason why I belong in a space, but it's my job for them. It's my job to make them see why it is me that should take up that space, right? Because I think I always try to think of it from an empathetic point of view. A recruiter or anybody who is reviewing you for a particular opportunity is actually quite inundated with work. So if they don't have the resources, even if they did want to invest in a study on you to say, why is this person the right person to take up the space? So I think really go, if you want to a certain space, be a learner, take the humble position of a student, learn every single thing that you can about that role, about that company, and then package your narrative for that person to make it so easy for them to see why this actually is indeed your space, even if you don't have experience in that sector. I've gone into sectors I had no business going into, and I was like, I'm going to make you believe that you didn't know you were looking for me, but this is why it is actually me. So I think having that posture, but a twist to the answer that I'll also add is that I think sometimes we focus a lot on taking up the space. So, how do I actually get into the space? But then we lose sight of the fact that it really takes a lot of hard work and being willing to do more than
Yeah.
what everybody else is willing to do to stay in that space so that you can then open doors for other people. So I think our excellence when we take up that space is also so important, and to build that track record so we can not just get in the space to take it up, but to stay there and then to elevate so that other people can then benefit from that door that you remain open. And just to share another quick story, I remember being in a kind of board meeting with a senior global exec for a global health company. I was working at a different company and then presenting my piece. And then this like whole global CEO with experience is like, Oh wow. Hi, Bakang. I remember you from like your early days in banking as a grad trainee. And I was so shocked. And he was like, no, I remember your excellence. So I'm like,
Oh.
five, 6 years later, I got a deal because of the work that I did as a graduate trainee in banking because I chose to be excellent. So I think that our excellence is so important for maintaining those spaces.
Thank you, Bakang. And also, one thing that I got from what you said was your willingness to step out of your main area of operation and actually step into a peripheral area where you try to solve an IT issue. That speaks volumes about your personality, about your character, your ambition, your drive. It says so much about you. And I think it's a really good example for the women who want to follow in your footsteps or your collective footsteps. It's a really good example and demonstration of how you could intentionally claim your space. So, having said that, Aisha, you're the last person for this round. And then I've got one last question after this. So, Aisha, what do you have to say?
Yes, no, absolutely. I appreciated hearing everyone else's contributions. I'd say that being a more reserved person and having to work through that in the last 2 years, one of the ways that I did intentionally claim space was that I volunteered for the opportunities nobody else wanted to do because they thought they were either not glamorous or they were too hard. And then being able to actually be successful ended up being a feather in my cap because then I was the one who could claim, like, I did it. Like I secured the grant money through this regulatory application that everyone else thought was too high of a hurdle to clear, was going to be too much work, didn't want to be bothered. I did it. Like, oh, you'll have to do this position, but you'll also have to build it out from scratch. It's not easy doing a job while building out the infrastructure to support said job, but I did it. And then I was able to show what my accomplishments were. And the fact is, like, not only can I do a job, but I can also create a system in which a job can be successful. That's what led me to have my current opportunity. And I'm now doing it again, but at a bigger scale. So I would encourage you to definitely take advantage of opportunities that may seem difficult, but you can definitely engineer a path to success. And then in terms of networking and putting yourself out there, I am not the person who's just going to go up to someone at an event and like say, hi, my name is, or like, oh, and just start conversation. I'm really horrible at icebreakers, but something that I've always been able to do that resonates with people is my sense of style. And so whenever I go to networking events, I always intentionally choose my outfit and I have something that's a conversation starter. So I know that that helps break the ice because people will like compliment it or it'll be a way to start a conversation. And then from there, I can be more comfortable, establishing connections with people. So that's my little like secret sauce life hack that I do as a person who's more introverted and reserved. So yes, again, like leaning into your true self, as Deborah said, your femininity, like yeah, those things can definitely be a superpower. So just think about that. It doesn't always have to be the hard technical things that get you ahead or give you an advantage. You can also lean into some of your more personal attributes or things that make you special.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Aisha. Oh my goodness, I just hit the wrong button. Sorry, guys. Okay, so my last question for you guys is, how do we create pathways for others as we advance? For example, with the next generation in mind, what responsibilities do you feel that your success has placed upon you towards the next generation?
I'm happy to go to answer that.
Okay, go ahead.
Um, so I really believe in mentorship. When I was at my last organization, I volunteered for a pilot mentorship program. And I think that is a very good way of creating space, building people, and shaping them to be ready for success. Because, people say success is preparation plus opportunity. And I do believe that because that is a been part of my life. So I definitely think mentorship is incredibly important. So actively finding opportunities to do that, actively finding opportunities to give back. And then also being part of groups, like currently at my company, I'm part of an affinity group that is for women's leadership. And so I definitely think that being in spaces where people are not just talking about it, but they're actually action based, where they're being mentors, being sponsors for young people, especially young women, to have them gain visibility, to have opportunities, to, improve. I think that's very important because what I've seen as a young professional is that a lot of people talk about these things, but then when you actually pull back the curtain and want action and actually would like assistance in these areas, there's not really a lot that is there. So I think that being intentional about showing up and really giving back and creating space is definitely one of the ways that we can do this.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody else? How do you create pathways for the next generation?
I think one of the ways I believe is definitely what we're doing here too. It's knowledge sharing, right? If we've been through certain things, it's important to share that, especially in the workplaces. From in my example in corporate America, if there are things that I know as an executive that could help younger people, it's about sharing that information. Also, like Aisha said, the Black Affinity Group, I'm the executive sponsor for it. This is my second year being the executive sponsor for that. That way I get to know any of the young Black folks coming through our corporate doors, understanding, and I'm getting to engage with them in this setting because they know I'm the executive sponsor. So I'm coming to their meetings, but I'm also helping the leaders of that to shape it. And I'm there to also help them navigate their careers too. So it's about knowledge sharing in ways, because in certain environments, there are the things that happen on the surface that everybody can see, and then there are the things that are happening behind closed doors that are parts of the systems that nobody's seeing. And I am definitely going to be more tapped into that than they are. So it's how can I help them? How can I kind of clear some of those pathways for them behind the scenes so that they're still able to rise too? What does that look like? So to me, that's really important. The other part too, it's like with leadership comes a lot of responsibility, and it's the responsibility to create a system for people where they can rise, where you can open doors for them, where it's a little bit easier for them, and you're removing some of the blockers that may have been there for you, but they don't have to exist for everyone else. So to me, that's a lot of what the responsibility that I take on too in a leadership position for other young people coming behind me. It's like if there's something that I know I experienced that I absolutely hated, I don't think the next person ever has to feel that too. So what can I do to make sure that it stops here with me?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Who goes next?
I
McLean?
can
Oh, Chelsea, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, just coming off of what Dia just said as well. The way that one of the ways that we create pathways is exactly that, removing those blockers. For instance, at our company, we give 6 months maternity leave as opposed to just the 3 months that are allotted according to law. And then on top of that, you have another 4 months that would also where you can work remotely if you choose, and then you're also compensated as well, under our own maternity leave laws and policies. So like creating a space for the people that work with us, that is more equitable, that doesn't follow the antiquated laws of Guyana. So creating a business model that honors a true work-life balance, and just having people work in a space that isn't oppressive. So, you see a lot of that in other businesses in Guyana. And then also creating opportunities for other small business owners, like I said, women-led, and giving them the opportunities to contribute to large events, large marketing projects, and in a real practical hands-on way, is how we've been doing it, and then have lots of other ideas.
One of the things that I do in my space is that I'm actually a career coach as well. And so what that is about for me is about helping the younger generation very practically in terms of positioning skills. But I think beyond the CV updates, the LinkedIn positioning, the networking strategies, it's really the idea of radical ownership of one's trajectory that isn't just placed on the company that they're in. And I think that that's where the most transformation happens when, as a young person, you decide, listen, this is my life. I'm not going to let my career be determined by the organizational growth development plans that are kind of generic and standard for anyone. The career that I want to live is the one that I curate, I shape, and I drive. So I think my work as a career coach is how I help individuals essentially do this for themselves.
Thank you so much. I think everybody's had a chance. Does anybody have anything else to add? We are coming to a close of this panel discussion. Any last minute comments? Okay. Well, ladies, thank you so much for a wonderful, wonderful panel discussion. I think that what you have said today and what you've demonstrated is a really good example to the others coming behind you. And I thank you for that. I'm going to turn it over now to Kanita Roberts to close us out.
I believe that this discussion was very fruitful, and it was very, very, very inspiring. I just want to ask the one question in the chat, which is, what is one area of life where you believe women need stronger support or strategy? I'll just ask one panelist to respond to this, and then I'll officially close out our session.
I really think a lot of the challenges we face now are systemic. And so I think one of the things that would really help women is true advocacy and actual policy and system change so that we have support in all areas of our life. I think that at times women constantly have to make bargains between the person they want to be and the obligations that are placed on them by the world. And so I think that, but with through more advocacy and change to systems and policy, therefore laws, I think that that's really where we need to put a lot of our energy in mobilizing and supporting each other so that we can create better environments for us and those who are supported by us, our families, our children, then can be successful. So I definitely think that's something that I see that is missing. There are great places for this to happen, but on a wider level, for it to become more equitable, that's where I see a lot of work needs to happen. And I know that's a massive amount of work, but I definitely think it's something that we need to do to just ensure our success, but also success for future generations.